get better quality results potentially. Because remember the level of targeting I mentioned earlier about really being able to get in front of people that exhibit certain behavioral characteristics, and then the platform could then look out and find other people just like your ideal player. That means if these systems are a much better job than just simply posting elsewhere, that means you could actually get better quality wish lists or other results. And if that's the case, better quality means those people are more likely than not to convert when your game goes to sale. So another other thing. So there's a lot of benefits that can really come out of this. And what's really great more than anything is from all these benefits alone, all this information, all this learning can be applied to other marketing campaigns. That's, I think, one of the biggest takeaways more than anything is everything that you're doing. And even if it doesn't work out as well as you would like it to, you could still take that and be like, okay, I know saying this a certain way didn't really work out or resonate well with the people. So I'm going to make sure that when I am making other initiatives elsewhere, not to do that because I know now it doesn't work. Now, lesson learned and some tips here. Remember how I mentioned before, if your game is going to be priced too low, it's probably not worth running ads. And when I say too low, I would say the good mark or threshold is anything between like, I would keep it like $15. If it's lower than $15, I probably wouldn't want to run ads, for that. Now there could be some nuances. Let's say even at $15, your wish list conversion rate for whatever reason is like really high. And, right. And let's assume that those are quality wish lists too. If that's the case, then it might be worthwhile to consider that. But in most cases, I'm being very general here, I would say you probably wouldn't want to consider running ads if it was like lower than $15 because then you're just getting too much risk. Remember I set a goal, you want a return on ad spend around 200%. Then you're risking having it be a bit lower or risking just getting it too much closer to 100% or below that. If it's anything below 100%, you're now not breaking even, you're losing money. And you don't want that to happen, right? There's any number of different reasons where that can be okay in very different dramatic situations. But for everyone listening here, that's probably not a model you want to do. All right, you don't want. You're not in a position to lose money, so we don't want that to happen. So again, remember, be mindful of what your price point of your game, because if it's much lower than that, it's probably not worth it. And when using ads for the first time, this is really important, by the way. Treat it as a test and be okay with getting nothing. And this still applies with if you ran ads 6 months ago and now you're running ads again or even a year, whatever, treat the first period as a test. And if you don't want to have, let's say $500 is a lot, you still are okay with doing it. Maybe just slow down the momentum starting out. Maybe it's not $15 a day. Maybe it's $5 a day. Get some stuff going, get some results, and then build off of that. But still, treat it as a test. Whatever you're starting out with, especially if it's the first time, set aside a certain period of time and treat it as a test. And be okay with whatever budget you're setting to start with. If I lose this, that it's okay, and I'm also going to learn from all these other learnings that I can take in and apply elsewhere. Think of it with that mindset, because I think what will happen is if you look at it really hoping you're going to get the best results possible, and it doesn't happen, it's easily going to put a bad taste in your mouth, and you'll probably won't consider ads again, or it just won't allow you to be put in the right mindset to learn the most you possibly can. So be okay with losing. It's like the people who go out gambling with friends or family or whatever, and they're like, oh, okay, here, I have $200. I'm okay if I lose it all. I'm just here to have a good time or have fun. And what happens? If they lose it all, they don't get upset. They're like everything else. And if they win, even better, right? kind of similar, different, but that's the mindset you want to approach. I think you're going to get more than if you were to gamble money away, and I don't want to compare this to gambling at all, but that's the mindset you should have. Look at, if I don't get anything out of this, what I ideally want, especially starting out, then at least I got this learning. At least I can apply this information. At least I did it in an amount of time that was way less and saved me time, money, resources than if I did it other ways and took that much time and took away from my project, right? That's the way you got to approach it. So when you're doing it first time, be okay with, just treating it as a test, because you are going to learn a lot from it. Don't set and forget your campaign, okay? And if you're working with someone, make sure they don't do that either. Because the reality of things are, especially with a platform like Facebook, you need to be cycling out your creative. You need to be testing out different things, because you could put something out there, it's doing great. Over time, people are going to keep seeing the same thing, like, all right, I already saw it, okay, I'm not that interested, or just because eventually it will start cycling through to the same point where everybody's like seeing it again. You will exhaust your audience at some point in time. But also, you're not necessarily learning anything from doing that. If you're running the one ad for all this time, you're never going to really learn too much about what other stuff might resonate. Maybe it does well, but a different ad could do better, or vice versa. You want to know that stuff, and just setting something up and running it and letting it do its own thing and don't check on it, and you're not going to get a good return on that. I can guarantee it. And plus, people like seeing new things about your game. If you're always just showing the same thing, and let's say that image you're using for an ad is also the same one you used before everywhere else, that's not going to be as exciting. But if you're sharing something new, let's say a different angle, a different level, I don't know, just anything that's slightly different, and cycle out with some other different creative, that could really help out tremendously. So consider those things as well too. Let's see, what else? Yeah, so definitely don't set and forget. And if you ran ads that were successful before, it gives you better insight to performance when running campaigns to non-trackable platforms. So here's what I'm saying. We talked about Steam. Because of UTMs, you can now track. But let's say you're launching your game and it's going on Nintendo, or it's going on whatever other platform that you don't have tracking with, and way less insight than you do to Steam. Well, if you already ran ads and have insight and direction in terms of, hey, I know this targeting, this stuff, and if we cycle it at this frequency, can work really well. So for those of you who are working with publishers, they will probably have good insight to what works well and everything too, right? But if you already did the work to build up an email list or run your own ads and be like, hey, when we were running these to our Steam page, we got this number and this number and this number, and you didn't run ads for a while, but now you're launching and they're willing to manage and help run your ads too, well, that information is going to help them do their job even better, right? So And when they're doing that and you have this information and know what performs really well, when you're running to platforms you're kind of in the dark with, because you can't properly attribute. You just get a little report that says you sold some units on Nintendo eShop. Well, and that's all you know. Well, at least you know you can lead with confidence, or help your partners or whoever else lead with confidence that if you run ads like this or similar to this, it's probably going to do work to our benefit. So that's why it's really important too. If you have considered running ads, another reason to consider down the line, if you do get a partnership, you have a publisher, or you just want to run ads again and you are ported in or distributed in different platforms, you can lead with confidence in those areas and market to those pages as well too, if that's part of your objective, your plans or whatever. So that's another major benefit right there too, and a lesson as well. Another thing too is monitor campaign activity probably like every other day to weekly. Don't do it daily and then based off of daily performance change stuff. It'll drive you nuts and it won't work. If you're always changing something, it's not giving the system enough time to update, correct, or do its thing to optimize. You're just going to be making a mess of your campaigns. Don't do it. And because patience is definitely helpful, but you don't, again, want to set and forget, right? And then track when you make changes. If you're doing this yourself, track when you make a change. And then you can plot out what those changes are, what are some of your goals and objectives for hitting certain numbers. Again, going back to like, those know your numbers type things and conversion rates, things like that. Because you can see like when you put in a new ad or put in a new image and see how stuff like outperforms compared to everything else. Well, then you want to try to duplicate that. And maybe not copy paste type situation, but at least it gives you enough insight to like, okay, now we know what really works and does well. So that's basically, those types of things are going to be really effective in helping you determine this. And again, these similar processes and practices and everything else that we talked about is very beneficial and helpful to what you're doing with all your other marketing efforts. So I hope that this big, huge deep dive, even though we, like I said, the format and the focus was around was around ads, was helpful. As a masterclass episode with just me talking, it's weird because I'm so used to talking to someone else here, and I hope it's not super weird for you guys because I know you could get in the groove of listening to something. So still, I hope it was helpful in that sense, especially in this particular subject as well. But I can't emphasize enough that while the format and everything was really structured around ads, that how this can be applied to everything else you're doing with your marketing, knowing your numbers, looking at things objectively, and taking that information and making really smart and efficient and effective decisions with everything you're doing to promoting your game. All right. So to summarize, know the reason why you're thinking about doing ads, or not just ads, but anything in general. What's the reason? What's your objective? What's your goal? Really know that reason. Because if you don't, it's going to be that much harder to figure out what's working for you, what's not, what's getting you to what you ultimately want to achieve. Know your audience. You know it. I've said it so many times on the show before. Know your audience. And also know the platform. If you become more familiar and understanding of the platform, what's their objectives and reason, you can be really creative in some instances and how you're using ads or how you're even approaching people on that platform. What are they there for? Because if your messaging is more disruptive and not in line with why people are in the platform to begin with, well, that might not work out as well as you would like it to. So know the platform, know why people are there, and try to do your best to be in line with that. And also, remember, be clear with your messaging, imagery, and remember the user journey. You want everything to align from the first time that someone saw your ad or your image or your screenshot, whatever, all the way down to ultimately when they're playing the game. Does that whole experience from when they saw that they got that first impression of you promoting your game all the way down to what the gameplay is like. Because if that's not happening, again, remember, I said, if that doesn't happen, it creates confusion. Confusion creates friction. Friction means less people taking action of the action you want them to take. Remember the user journey. And then know your numbers. It's super important to know your numbers, know how they're working for you, know how they attribute to the overall focus of your campaigns. Because if you don't, you're guessing, you don't know what's happening. It's not good if you don't know what's happening. Yes, you're doing a lot of other things. And yes, those things require your attention and everything else. But you still, as a creator, as someone who wants to do so much more than what you're doing right now in the future, like whatever your future goals are and stuff, you need to have a pulse on these things. You need to know what they're going on. As you grow, it'll become a little bit more natural, but taking the initiative to know these things now, it's going to come more in tune and more in line with your thinking, more in the back of your mind. And it doesn't necessarily mean things are going to get easier, but it does mean you're going to be very cognizant and aware of these things. So that way, when you're moving forward, you're making effective and the right decisions to reach your goals. That's why knowing your numbers is so important. And if you don't know your numbers, work with someone within your team or there's any other means that you can do this.